Texas.
That's right, George Strait.
You're right.
Texas.
So
Okay.
listen, that's the theme today. Not just Texas, but that's what's going to start us off.
Yeah. Also George Strait.
Also George Strait.
He's very important.
Yeah. So coming to you today on Tuesday, November 6th, that's Election Day.
I voted. Did you vote?
I voted.
We're wearing our stickers.
Yep.
And I'm wearing my hair up in a half ponytail.
Me too.
We're twins. And we have denim on.
Guys, this is a good day.
This is a good day.
Also, today is National Nacho Day, I heard on the radio this morning. So, guys, it's a win-win.
Today
Voting
is
and
a
nachos.
good day all around. Democracy, Tex-Mex, Texas, George Strait. Let's go.
All right, Chapter 13, Where's My Latte? This is like our 100th episode. We just want to celebrate with you today. It's probably like 6.
Yeah, it's not our 100th episode.
Oh, man, we start off with a really good fashion statement. That is Stephen Austin down there.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Look at that brim on that hat.
It's very sunny in Texas.
It is.
You got to block the shade out of your eyes.
I feel that.
So we're talking about Manifest Destiny, which is probably actually something that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
The idea that's just like, let's keep going.
Yeah.
It's our God-given right as white men to keep on moving.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of responsibility with that.
I knocked for emphasis.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of, I have a little head cold, guys, so there's going to be a lot of me pausing and wondering about
Who's
human
the sick one
existence.
today?
So, but yeah, Manifest Destiny isn't new. It's just a new name for it because before we've just been like, rah, that's been the
3
rally
Gs.
cry. Now it's like, well, we'll be a little bit more articulate and call it Manifest Destiny.
We got some paintings.
We got paintings. We got ideas.
We got songs.
Songs.
Literature.
Yeah. So let's bring that out to all the people who are so clearly missing all of that. And God is telling us to do it. And there's, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, particularly when we get into the next period, when we talk about the rain, or God follows the plow.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a little tidbit from period 6. Okay, Americans in Texas, Steve Austin. So here's the deal. Mexico, new country, right? Newly independent from Spain. And they're like, listen, we're kind of small and we sort of need some economic stability. And so Americans, listen, we hear that your soil is kind of weird. Why don't you come on out here and plant some cotton? And you don't have to ask us twice. We're like, yeah, let's take it. So we go out
Everyone
there.
in the South is very much cool with this.
We're very cool with it. Now, the only thing is that they want to bring slaves with them. And Mexico is like, I wish I knew how to say it in Spanish, but they're not into that. How do you say not into that in Spanish?
No. No in Spanish is no.
No. Okay. But, at this point, it's like, yeah, just come on in. Yeah, you're going to have your slaves. We're not going to call them slaves, though. Wink, wink. Just be cool. So Americans, I realize no information is being exchanged here between me and the microphone. But, so basically a whole bunch of Americans and their slaves go down into Texas. They're living amongst Mexicans and quite happily. Everyone's getting along, even intermarrying.
Oh, whoa.
And basically the economy in Texas at this point, which should really be referred to as Tejas. My apologies to Tejanos.
Tejanos.
But it's really a cotton economy. And at some point, right around 1830, there are more Americans than Mexicans in Texas.
In Tejas.
In Tejas. And so they're like, listen, we want to be Tejas.
Yeah.
But we're going to call it Texas. At which point Mexico's like, yeah, we're kind of full on immigrants from America, so stop coming, please.
Right.
And it
Capped out.
We're capped out. We're done. No more. And Americans are like, you don't tell me what to do, people.
Specifically,
So-
Texans are like, no,
Yeah, no,
no
we're
one
not-
tells Texas what to do.
Yeah, but that makes sense, though, because for decades now, they've been intermarrying. They have family lineage. They have established economies. And so they're like, we're not going to, stop coming because, my cousin can totally help me out on the farm with my not slaves. So
Totally not slaves.
Totally not at all. So basically, there's just so many Americans in this area. But then we have a split. There's 2 groups. Now, Stephen Austin here, man about town,
With that hat.
fashionable.
Fashion.
He's like, listen, I'm going to be part of something called the Peace Party. The Peace Party is basically Americans who are like, I'm totally cool if you call me Mexican. I don't
Yeah.
care. You
They're
can
like, who
label me.
cares?
Yeah, who cares? Just let me stay here.
I just have land, so I'd like to stay on
I got land. I got money.
I got family.
This is cool.
I got not slaves.
not slaves. Let's just stay here. And then you got other folk like Sam Houston who are like, "Wah!" That's the warhawk angry bird. That's a very angry warhawk. But those guys are like, nah, we don't want to be Mexican. We want to be American, and this is our land. This is America. And basically, I'm going to skip forward several years. Basically, what winds up happening is that the war population, Houston and whatnot, are like, let's fight. Mm-hmm. And they do.
And here's what happens.
Pew, pew, pew. Yeah, so effectively what happens at this point is that Santa Anna, Generale Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, my apologies to anyone who speaks Spanish,
or has a good accent.
He's going to take over. He's the dictator of Mexico at this point. There are a couple of conflicts. Of course, remember the Alamo. Who doesn't remember the Alamo?
Me.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just kidding. I remember the Alamo.
Yeah, so...
Who doesn't?
So the Alamo is like an old Catholic mission.
I was going to say it's a church, right?
Yeah, it's an old church, Catholic mission, and Americans like all jump inside of it to protect themselves against Santa Anna and his forces. A battle. It's a battle, though, but we've learned, if we have learned nothing from the Battle of Bunker Hill, which I know I didn't teach.
Which we learned nothing from.
It's that you don't all stand in one spot.
Right, that's really not smart.
It's not going to be smart.
You got to scatter, serpentine.
Yeah, but not too much. We'll come back to that in a second. And so basically Santa Anna's like, guys, we can stay here all day and night and the next day. And they do. Now, by the end of it, everyone inside the Alamo is killed, except for two black not slaves.
Not slaves.
A woman and her infant child. Those are the only people that are left. Like everybody else.
And that infant child grows up to be... I'm just kidding.
Man, I'm so excited. I'm like, who is it? It's Andrew Jackson, guys.
It's Andrew Jackson.
Reborn. So basically the reason Santa Anna leaves those people alive is it's very dramatic. It's very like, I feel like this is like a Mongol sort of thing. Like, ooh, go back and tell everyone what
Tell everyone what you saw here.
Yeah.
Warn your
friends.
And
they did. They're like, they slaughtered us.
These people are crazy.
Yeah. But then Santa Anna makes a big military boo-boo. He splits his military into two. One goes to the Battle of San Jacinto. He's quickly captured.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And then the other guys are just like slaughtered. So at that point, we're like, the Lone Star Republic. Woo!
We're our own country now.
Yeah. And for 9 years, Texas stays independent, even being recognized by Great Britain at one point. So now why... Ms. Knowles, why wouldn't you want Texas? It's a big old state. Boundaries to be continued.
Oh, throwback.
Yeah.
We'll throw forward. All right. So Texas' own state.
Yeah,
just
but
crushing it.
Listen, at this point, we're looking at like 1835-ish, right?
We've got so
much
much
Jackson,
time.
And Jackson's like, yeah, I'm not going to start that fight right now.
Yeah, he was like, we've got enough trouble in the Union. We're going to need to take it back a little bit. Henry Clay's really stressed out with all these compromises, irons he's got in the fire. Like, we don't want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, and Jackson at the end of the day doesn't want people to, like, want disunion. And he's like, listen, I'm already treating everybody, like, the Native Americans kind of like garbage.
Right.
I'm treating a lot of people really like garbage.
Like garbage.
So let's not push this one. Let's just let this one sit. Texas is going to be there for a while. It goes from him to Martin Van Buren, and he's got stuff like the Depression or the Panic of 1837 to deal with. Thanks, Jackson. Turns out your bank war did hurt you.
Did actually hurt people.
But on the way out.
More like Martin Van Ruin.
Martin Van Ruin.
That's what they call him.
And so people start moving out west. It's going to...
press pause on this sectional crisis.
Yeah, and so Van Buren's like, yeah, we're just going to leave this one alone. And it's not until 1845 that it's finally annexed into the United States.
Yes.
Basically, people are scared of throwing in a massive slave state into America when we are perfectly balanced on free versus slave states.
Right. That was the real big issue.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, you also don't want to be the guy that broke up the United States. Andrew Jackson's trying to keep the Union together. Abraham Lincoln just trying to keep the Union together. You don't want to be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Or that gal.
Or that gal.
She would have fixed it.
We all know.
Guys already did half the slides, so never mind. Let's talk about Oregon.
Ooh.
Remember, all these people, Panic of 1837, Only thing you need to know about any panic in American history is that it is caused by over-speculation.
Every single panic.
Everyone.
Why do we keep doing it?
And over-speculation just means we're buying too much of something on credit. And then the bottom falls out, thanks to Andrew Jackson, and everything goes to pot.
What are you gonna do?
There's a panic, and everybody's like, well, being on the East Coast is stupid right now, so let's go west.
We go to Oregon territory.
We don't really have that many people, though, up there. What we have is Russians and Spaniards and
Great Britain.
And British.
Yeah.
And, like, a sprinkling of Americans.
I always think that it's so weird that the Spanish are up there. Mm-hmm. I always forget that they're up there, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, Spanish. And everyone's like, why are the Spanish up there? And I'm like, I don't know, boats.
Well, California.
Keep on. Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously.
Oh.
But, like, how did they get up there? Boats.
Wow.
Duh.
Walking,
silly goose.
So there is, I've just recently, in my free time, been studying Oregon a little bit more in depth.
So much Oregon.
And it turns out that there is a lot of controversy over whether or not America really has a boundary with Canada. And really, at the end of the day, the only people who have sort of a true claim to this area are going to be the Americans and the Brits.
Yeah.
And we have some Secretary of State whose name totally escapes me right now.
We should have Googled it before we did this.
We should have Googled it. Kids Google it.
We have Sam's phone.
Okay.
Oh, man, she's got a password. Dang it.
Passwords. So basically, our Secretary of State at the time finagles his way into getting just America and Britain on this treaty. Now, in my research, I've found out, and this was actually thanks to Chase, I believe. I believe it was Chase. Or Chance, I don't know which one it was. But the idea of, like, how do we know what our boundaries are for Louisiana? And in my Googling of that, what I found out was that the Oregon boundary, which is at the 49th parallel, we'd like the 54th parallel, 5440 or fight. Right. But it actually is not really that controversial. We're pretty clear that our boundaries at the 49th, we just decided to get greedy. And we're like, let's ignore that. Louisiana territory may have been at the 49th, but that doesn't mean that's everything. We want more land. So, yeah, that probably doesn't help you at all, but it says disputed claims, but they really weren't historically disputed. No. We just got greedy.
America was just like, we're going to dispute this.
Yeah, we're just going to take
We think we need some more.
Now, why do we want all of this? Because it's like all coastline. There's a whole market out there, guys.
Right. Boats. Once again,
man.
Boats.
All right.
Okay.
You have died of dysentery, guys.
You have died of dysentery. May you rest.
We got to bring that back. Oregon Trail.
I thought you meant dysentery.
No, I think it's still around.
I think it is still around. I think people could easily get dysentery. Maybe we're just not dying from it. Anyway, so we're going to, okay, yeah, it is the gold rush. So not lots of westward migration right now, but there are some groups of people moving out west. Last, Where's My Latte? We talked about the Mormons.
Yeah.
They're trucking on out there.
I didn't realize this. But the Mormons had armed conflict with America. They were in full armed conflict.
In the east or in the west?
As they started to move out west.
Armed? That just doesn't seem like something that they would do.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Generally, I thought they were non-aggressive.
I agree.
Well, there you go. So we've got, like, missionaries going out there. We've got the Mormons going out there. Guess what else? Gold. 49ers are heading on out there. This is a big length of time that we're talking about. I don't know where to stop.
I just think
it's not Homestead Hour.
No, not that far.
No.
So
just keep on moving west.
Westward migration. It's like a 2,000-mile trek out there from the East Coast.
Quite far.
It's very, very far. I read 11 to 15 miles a day was an average pace. So you're talking about, like, you're out there.
And you're not just, like, walking yourself. You're, like, moving your whole life out there.
I mean, we've all played Oregon Trail, I hope.
No, I don't think these kids have played Oregon Trail.
Okay, go to the library day.
Go to the... we should get back on that.
This is, but we see a mass migration of people out there. You may read somewhere that it's called, like, it's another Great Migration, and that's garbage. It's just a lot of people.
Don't call it the Great Migration.
It's a lot of people. It is dangerous. There's Southerners who are moving out that believe that it's their sort of view of life and their cult of honor and all of that should dictate what the Western sort of law is going to be. And then there are a lot of people who are like, what are you talking about? We're not from the South. So it's a bit of a crazy period of American history and dangerous, incredibly dangerous. But an interesting side note is that westward migration actually does lead to a more empowered female population, because women are expected to do the same work as
Right.
men on the way out.
We can't have anybody slacking.
Nobody slacks. So all of a sudden, when things get tough, women, of course,
Step it up.
we're there to save the day.
Of course. So this is our Oregon territory again. Did you miss? So Democrats in expansion, where we have had a couple elections. We got Martin Van Buren, we got William and Harrison. Now we're on to
Tyler.
Ooh, Tyler. Typical new Tyler too.
Yeah, and Tyler was VP to William Henry Harrison,
Took
who
over.
was a Whig, and when Harrison died, because he decided to give an inaugural speech in the cold in like a t-shirt, basically,
on, man.
like a tank top, like
He was out there in a wife beater.
like that seems inappropriate. That is not a good name for things, kids.
That's what they're called.
I know, but yeah, he's out there like in a tank top giving a speech, and people are like, "You're gonna get a cold." Got a cold and died.
And it's the 1830s, so you're gonna die if you get a cold.
They're gonna like. I think they even tried to like do leeches on him or something.
That seems wrap him in a wet blanket.
And it just did not
Water
work.
therapy.
And so then Tyler
Tyler takes over.
Tyler takes over, and they're like, okay, well at least he's a Whig. Joke's on
Psych.
you.
He's
I'm
not a Whig.
Democrat. So this is one of those realignments that we see. So basically, the Whig Party is not what it was. Whigs are basically becoming Democrats. So you know what's on the horizon, guys. More parties.
More parties.
Okay.
It's happening.
But
Just
the
little
Democrats
profits.
are still the party of expansion, the party of slavery, and they get Polk, Mr. Polk's War. There you go.
I mean, the Democrats were still kind of, I mean, they're not fully geographically based, like where the Whigs, are in the north, and the Democrats are in the south. But the Democrats are in the south, the Southern Democrats are supporting the expansion. They're the ones that support Texas and annexing Texas. And we still wish to occupy Oregon, but not just what we have of Oregon, more of Oregon.
We're not all.
5440 or 5.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I've
we on
learned
Tyler yet? No,
in
we're not
American history is that you need a good slogan. Okay? If you want people to support it, you need a good slogan.
I mean, yeah.
So 5440 or fight is a good slogan. And what it means is that we want to go, and you can see on the map here, all the way up through that like peachy colored area in Canada. And so we want it. Well, at the end of the day, we wind up just settling on joint occupation of a lot of this territory. Everything's going to be super peaceful. Here's the problem for Polk. Polk is like, man, if I'm supposed to be the expansionist president and I just let go without much of a fight of like all this Canadian territory, I got to go get me some more land. So we're going to go south.
We're going to go south. We're going to get that land in the south.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I was already moving on. So we start talking about Texas again, boundary disputes. We start talking about California. Who has that land? Mexico.
Oh, sorry, I think I cursed a little bit. I was not listening. I was drinking my latte.
Well, we've been talking about a very large expanse of time, so I see that. So at the point in time, I think we're going to talk about 1845 here. Okay. This land is going to not be ours yet. It's going to belong to Mexico. And then, like, Texas independently, right? Texas is still independent in 1845?
Yeah, but it's a decision on what's our border. Is our border the Rio Grande?
Yep.
Or is it the Nueces River?
Who knows?
No lo sé. No sé.
No sé. Yo no sé.
Yo no sé.
Yo no sé. Yep. So why do we want California?
Because San Francisco's
Yeah.
port. San Francisco has a huge port that is where we're going to go to China. And it's like, we got boats.
Boats.
We got boats.
Where were you
I
going
got
with it?
boats.
We don't even need to play Where's All My Exes Live in Texas again.
No, I got it. So that's why we want California.
Right? Get our boats to Asia.
Yeah, and there's a guy out there named John C. Fremont, and Fremont is really popular at this point because he's been working with the Topographical Corps, which basically he's been leading the charge out there for Americans just to like survey land and find out what resources and whatnot we have. That so he becomes like this figure for California, even though it's not ours, it's Mexican.
All right. The Mexican War. All right. Opposition to war. Who was opposed?
Biggs?
Henry Clay.
Whigs.
That's it. Just kidding. So yeah, the Whigs. Expansion meant to a lot of people more slavery.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, having all this land, there's the potential for more slavery.
Right.
So
what are you going to do with all that? Why do we need that? We seem pretty cool right now. Remember our eagle map? We got it.
That wasn't an eagle.
Our eagle is finished.
Fini. The Bear Flag Revolution. Wait, were we done with opposition to war? Yes. The Bear Flag Revolution. Bear flag flies over California.
They got bears.
Who's
bears
out there?
Beats
Battlestar Galactica. Battleship Rhymes. Key battle. So, what am I doing?
I don't even know where you are.
I'm in Mexican War. Stephen Kearny out there in capturing Santa Fe, aided in California, capturing California. We're doing good stuff. We're moving right along. We're getting all that land. Continue to get more land.
Yeah, and like really the war itself, it occurs because of that boundary dispute. So we start sending people out to like defend what we see as our boundary, which is the Rio Grande, because it gives us more land. And the Mexicans are like, listen, first of all, Texas isn't yours. Stop saying it's yours. Stop telling people.
You're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah. So Mexico, even though we declared, like the people in Texas declared Tejas independent, Mexico's like, that's cute, but no.
And America's still like, also no.
So, yeah. So it when we think about the Texas annexation in 1845, these sort of acts are going to instigate conflict, like direct conflict with Mexico. We go out, we want to defend the border that we think is the Rio Grande. Mexico shows up and they're like, nah. And here's side note, important piece of information from my college days that I remember from my professor telling me. One of the most important kind of social aspects of the Mexican-American War was the conflict between Americans and the Irish that were fighting in the Mexican-American War. Because the Irish, who were largely Catholic, came over and they were like, we don't want to fight other Catholics like the Mexicans. And so they actually had to split the Irish off. Now, the Irish were literally stepping off the boat and being given a uniform to go fight in this conflict. So
that continues for a long time.
Yeah, and so they're shipped all the way out here. They don't want to fight against the Mexicans, and what they wind up effectively doing, they don't desert or anything, but once the war is sort of done, instead of going back to the East Coast, they sort of start to fill up the ranks in the West Coast, and that's why we see a pretty large Irish presence out there. Fact. Okay.
Just dropping knowledge on us.
Yeah.
So the Mexican-American War provides a lot of really good names, like Zach Taylor, Winfield Scott, lots of good names. Zach Taylor is the big general that they send from to fight at the border, the Rio Grande border.
Yeah.
And Winfield Scott's Great Snake. Oh my gosh, I just want to move past this expansion thing, and I want to get into the Civil War.
It's really good. So now we're like, we win. I know some of you with the battles are so sad.
Who cares?
But there was lots of fighting. And then it was over. It was only a 2-year battle. It really wasn't that long.
No.
But we settle everything with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which we will all learn about in class, just a smidge, at least from Jimmy Fallon.
Just from Jimmy Fallon.
And basically what we need to know with the treaty is Mexico basically gives California and this whole area that we call the Mexican cession. Like they ceded land to us.
Yeah, all that land right there.
All that green, that light green land.
That light green land, that's all ours now. It basically was like everything in America that's not Louisiana and the Oregon Territory. It was everything else, essentially, except for the treaty or the what was that little smidgen of land? Gadsden Purchase.
Yes. Yeah. So we pay Mexico $15 million is basically I always feel like it's hush money. I know it's not, but I feel like it's just sort of shh, quiet. We're going to take all this.
We're good now.
And then at the last minute, the guys, people are like, no, take all of Mexico. Don't sign the treaty, Polk. We're in here. We can take it all. And Polk's like, can you
chill
sign the treaty already?
This is a 2-year war that should have been 2 years.
So basically there was this kind of initial push to let's take it all. But Polk's like, yeah, we're good. We're just gonna call it a day when it comes to Mexico.
We're done here.
All right, now.
Okay, now we get into the good stuff.
Yeah.
I really don't like talking about the Mexican-American War.
Love it. It's so good.
Whatever. It's lame.
All right, fine.
I'm just kidding.
Let's talk about this then.
So now we get to the good stuff, and that means what are we going to do with this new land? If we're subscribing to our old Missouri Compromise, most of this land is going to be used for slavery. And now we're disturbing the balance in Congress.
Like,
and
significantly.
Significantly. And so now we've got to just reevaluate that. Henry Clay, mad upset about it. Whatever. He's upset about a lot of stuff.
He's also very old.
But he's trying to hang up his hat as the great compromiser. So we've got a few things that we're going to try and do regarding slavery in the territories and moving forward. The Wilmot Proviso. Proviso?
I say Proviso.
I say Proviso. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato.
All the same.
I've only just said the opposite of what you said. I'm in a fighting mood today. 54-40 or fight.
I feel that. Remember the Alamo.
Remember the Alamo. So this basically was like, hey, I've got a great idea.
Let's hear it, Wilmot.
How's about all this is free? And everybody in Congress was like, boo! Who let this guy in?
Man.
All of this should be free. Just prohibit. It's fine.
And the Free Soil Party is kind of like, now that the Whigs have effectively started to merge with the Democrats,
right?
Because of Tyler, the Free Soil Party starts up, and the Free Soil Party is exactly what their name is. Like,
free
it's not
soil.
That they're against slavery. That's
right.
kind of a theme we'll see a lot. Like, it's not that I don't like slavery or feel anything
right.
either way.
It's just
Let's
not fair.
Not let it keep going.
Yeah.
It exists where it is. Leave it alone. But we're not going to keep going with it.
Someone in my 7th period class at Alec Wright was like, oh, so like what we did to the Soviet Union in the 40s and 50s. And I was like, containment. Yeah. Good for you, Alec.
Nice work. You better
be
watching our podcast.
He's not. This will be a quiz question. So anyway, so still, Free Soil Party though. That's probably ringing true for a lot of people, but the Free Soil Party doesn't last for that long. No. We're going to morph into something else. So we're fighting. What should we do? Obviously, when we're fighting, let's compromise over it. So we have this compromise of 1850, and it is a multifaceted compromise.
Yeah,
we're doing a lot of things. Yes,
we're going to give one thing to the slave population, and then we're going to give one thing. I'm sorry, we're going to give one thing to the pro-slavery population.
We're not giving anything to the slave
population.
Not
yet, unfortunately. And then we're going to give one thing to the free. So it's a balance. Like everything's kind of paired together except for one part.
So who came up with the compromise?
Henry Clay,
of course. So here's some things that happen.
Write it down. 1. California, free state.
Free state.
No questions asked.
Yep. Everything in California is free.
Done.
As far as the eye can see. Unless you're in Nevada. Number 2. I always go with the Fugitive Slave Act.
Oh, that's my coup de grace.
The pièce de
resistance.
So French in this episode. Yes. Fugitive Slave Act, that was you know what, let's save that for the end.
Yeah.
Popular sovereignty.
Yeah, so basically the Mexican cession will be decided by popular sovereignty, which is something that is in the Constitution, although it's sort of vague in where it's going to be used or when it's going to be used.
Right.
But basically people are like, listen, let's not make this a us versus them fight. Let's just let the people in that territory decide what they want. And it sounds really easy on the outside. Like, that seems fair. If you live there, you decide.
You should be able to decide. Makes sense.
So
it doesn't always happen.
That's just what they say about this area. So those two, the Mexican cession is going to be organized according to popular sovereignty.
Yes.
There's also a dispute in territory that is settled between Texas and like New Mexico.
Right.
A little bit of money exchange. No big deal for us.
Money. We're going to assume Texas debts. Whatever. And then
boom.
The Fugitive Slave Act.
Yeah,
here's where we get real sketchy.
But let's just do a quick background on Fugitive Slave Act. We have a federal Fugitive Slave Act.
Yes.
We have for a while. It was the court case Prigg, Prigg versus Pennsylvania, that said that states are not required to enforce the fugitive slave law. Only the federal government is forced to do that. Okay? Yep. So that's a little quick background. We have it already. Here we go again.
Fugitive Slave Act, Part 2.
Yeah.
So basically, it was the obligation of everybody to report any person that may or may not be a fugitive slave. Yeah. So this is going to basically, like, it's going to be a lot of racial profiling that's going to be happening. Like, if someone is black walking around in town up in the north, we got to be like, hey, let's see some identification to everybody, or else that was now our, like, we were in trouble if we didn't do that.
Right, and you would go to court. Basically, what happens is that you would take, if I'm like, okay, this person here is my old slave, and you would go to a judge, and it would be you, the person you're accusing, and all you needed was one additional person to say, yep, that's your slave. That's it. And the African American was not allowed to speak in his or her defense. And the judge got paid more if the individual was returned to slavery versus if they were set free.
Right.
So it's a scam, guys. And if you've ever seen 12 Years a Slave, that's actually about this period. It's a true story about a guy living up north who's captured by slave hunters and like put back into slavery, even though he was never a slave. And he exists like that for 12 years and keeps a diary. He's a very well-educated individual. It's a great movie. It's very, very sad, very realistic. It's hard to watch, but it's an important movie if you have your parents with you, because I think it's rated R.
Yes.
So this is serious, though, because this really is saying to people, like, be on alert constantly. There's really no way for you to defend yourself. There is no way.
Right. And one thing that you can take away is that, like, now we used to have, like, okay, there was slavery in these states and there's not slavery in these states, but now there's slavery everywhere. You are not free anywhere. Potentially.
Coming back, 1857. We'll talk about that.
We'll get back.
All right. Now, there is a lot socially that develops because of the Fugitive Slave Act. I think in class we'll probably talk about Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, which is a reaction to what she's seeing with the effects of the Fugitive Slave Act, which includes even people on the Mississippi. We have stories of mothers drowning their children because slave catchers are coming after people, and they don't want them to be put into that.
It's slavery. Very sad.
It's very sad. It's a very serious situation. All right.
So let's get to Kansas and Nebraska. So Kansas and Nebraska controversy. So once upon a time, after the Compromise of 1850 was passed, we're doing our popular sovereignty thing in the Southwest. We're doing our Fugitive Slave Act thing. It's on the next page. We're doing our Fugitive Slave Act thing in the East. Kansas and Nebraska. One of them is there's this big territory.
Nebraska is a big territory.
Nebraska is the big territory. We have Kansas trying to enter as a state. One thing that we do, because popular sovereignty is working so well in the Southwest, we're like, let's just do it here too, and we won't have to decide, like, are we going to tip the scales in the free states, or are we going to tip the scales in the slave states? We won't have to, because they're just deciding for themselves. It's fine.
It's perfect. There's no potential here for anything to go wrong.
What could go wrong? Next bullet point is literally Kansas. So we have this popular sovereignty thing just be put in place. Like, let's do the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and both of these things, popular sovereignty. You're a state now, and everybody's just voting for what they want. Birth of the Republican Party. It's happened.
Yeah,
we are now. There was in like the election that happened right around this time. What was it, like? It would have been like 52. Yeah. We are starting to see like mad sectionalism, and a lot of the Whigs like go away because of their anti-slavery sentiments, and they kind of join the Free Soil Party, and that kind of just is going to morph into our Republican Party.
Yeah, it'll kind of all join forces again.
Yes. We have this all big feeling. The Whigs,
they just fizzle out.
They just, I mean, not unlike our Federalist Party. Yeah. Rip. So, anyway, by the way, what could go wrong in Kansas and Nebraska? This.
Everybody's going to die.
Bleeding Kansas. So, what we see with popular sovereignty at this point in time is people got really, really aggressive about whether their states were going to be free or slave.
And you're not going to believe this, kids, but people try to trick the system. It happens.
What?
It's called the Lecompton Constitution. Okay? So when we start with Bleeding Kansas, what we are looking for, what instigates this situation is that Kansas is now ready to apply for statehood. And applying for statehood, they have to make a state constitution. Kansas sort of leans towards anti-slavery. They are not going to be a slave state, a slave-holding state. But
they're technically in the north, according to Henry Clay's line.
According to the line, but they're also right next door to Missouri. So They basically form a constitution, and there's a box you can check whether you want slavery or you don't want slavery. And then the day of the election or the voting on the Constitution to be approved by the people, according to popular sovereignty, a whole bunch of people that we refer to as border ruffians charge over the state line.
Border ruffians. I forgot what they were called.
Border ruffians charge over into Kansas and cast their vote for pro-slavery.
That's voter fraud.
It is, and all the people of Kansas are like, this is not okay. This is what they called at the time whack. So, the pro-slavery or the anti-slavery people of Kansas are like, we're not going to support this Constitution because it's not what we voted for. It's illegal voting. This is voter fraud.
This is voter fraud.
Which is interesting that it's Kansas.
Recount.
Isn't that Kobach guy? Kobach. Anyways, sorry, contemporary politics. Little add-in that doesn't make sense yet. So the anti-slavery people of Kansas are like, we're going to make our own constitution. And guess what the U.S. Congress gets? 2 constitutions to decide on.
Yeah.
They're like,
which are what
get it together, Kansas.
These 2 guys are fighting over it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we've got this... Do you want to try and pronounce that word?
No, I got it. It's Pottawatomie Creek.
I cannot ever say that word.
Pottawatomie Creek Massacre.
Never been able to try it.
Yeah.
This is when what did they burned down the anti-slavery government.
They did.
Pro-slave forces went and they burned down the anti-slavery government. John Brown, abolitionist, killed 5 pro-slave settlers.
And let me just stop there because if they don't just kill some of the pro-slavery forces, John Brown and his group,
super aggressive guy,
go into their homes, drag the men out of the homes in front of the women and the children, and proceed to hack them up into little bits and pieces.
Yeah, John Brown, he's
aggressive.
He's got some ideas.
But he's also like,
they're weird
ideas.
Super
aggressive, also still not as bad as slavery.
Right.
I mean, it is murder, so it's very bad.
So it's close.
But it's also not institutionalized racism forever and ever.
Forever and ever by the government.
So that's Pottawatomie Creek Massacre. John Brown's going to come back again.
Oh, no, he doesn't go away.
Because he's going to hightail it out to the East Coast. But the blood is not done.
Bloodshed.
It comes to Preston Brooks and Charles Sumner. This is called the Bleeding Sumner Incident.
The caning against Sumner.
Yes, Charles Sumner, who is, I'm going to say he's from Massachusetts because I think everyone's from Massachusetts.
Everyone is from Massachusetts. He is from Massachusetts.
Not Daniel Webster, though. He's from New Hampshire. Whatever.
It's neither here nor
Charles
there.
Sumner, a Massachusetts senator, gets up there and he gives a speech called The Crime Against Kansas. And basically he calls... he says the South is like a harlot. Basically, the South is prostituting themselves for this slavery.
Jezebel.
Yeah, he uses some strong language, and he insults a guy, Senator Butler of South Carolina.
And Senator Butler's, grandson?
His kin is Preston Brooks. I think it's like his cousin or nephew or something like that. And Preston Brooks is like, don't talk about my kin that way, and takes his cane and beats Charles Sumner in the middle of
the Senate floor
to a pulp. But he does not die.
He doesn't die. He rises from the ashes.
But he is seriously injured.
He's very injured. He does not bounce back quickly.
He does not. Now, Preston Brooks is going to be immediately removed from the Senate because of this, and then is immediately voted back into the Senate by the people
he's
of
like
South
a hero.
Carolina. Yeah.
South Carolina. Get it together.
Get it together.
So free soil ideology, I feel like we've already talked a good deal about this, but it's not anti-slavery like existing. It is anti-slavery expanding. It's the free soil, free labor type thing. Slavery is not so much of a moral issue as it is an economic one, according to these people. And this is like the Republican Party. That's
the heart and soul of it.
Yeah. All right.
Here we go, guys.
Okay. So pro-slavery argument. Ooh, I always feel so like gross when I talk about pro-slavery argument. But this is how the South's defense of slavery. We read that. I mean, we read it in my class. The John C. Calhoun essay, the Slavery is a Positive Good essay.
We did not read that.
Oh, so gross. Just like we have arguments for like, since the South has had slavery, like it's clearly a stable economy. So like you wish you were as stable as our economy at the North. Because we have such a stable economy, we have a stable political system, and that's because of slavery at the North. Also, like slaves, if you're a slave, like you're not stuck up in some stuffy factory. You get to go outside.
Yeah, well, and that's not that. There are responses to that. You know, there's
Right.
one guy who wrote "Cannibals All," George Fitzhugh.
Cannibals All. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Throwback, right? And he writes a book called "Cannibals All," and he's basically like, I know that you want to talk smack about us North, but
However,
how well do you take care of your workers?
right.
You know, that bell rings at the end of the day, and if they're hurt, nobody cares.
Nobody cares about them.
If they go home and there's no food, nobody cares. And again, so icky, but his argument is, at least in the South, there's a force to keep,
Right.
there's a reason to take care
We're
of
taking
slaves.
care of these people.
They need medical attention. And obviously that is really romanticizing what the South
Right.
is doing, because, I mean, come on. It gets back into that whole, like, creating this, like, patriarchy and this, like fatherly system. It's so icky.
gross.
So that's sort of the pro-slavery argument. But, I mean, really, we know, and we have known, if we remember back to DeBow's review from Louisiana, that the South has a stable economy, but it's also a really slow economy.
Right. You have to wait for plants to grow.
Well, yes, but
Just kidding.
true. Except for that short staple cotton. That goes fast, man. But yeah, basically this idea, like, it's there's no room for growth. We are where we will always be.
You can't improve on agriculture like
That's
it's
stagnant.
just going to be the same. You're just waiting for crops to grow for you.
That's all you're doing at this point. All right, so Buchanan in the Depression. I mean, there's a depression.
At James Buchanan. Who cares? Anyway, well, there's something. I forgot the Know Nothing Party existed for this amount of time.
Oh yeah, there's still
It was Buchanan as a Dem, Fremont as a Republican, which we have our this is the first election with the Republican Party, I'm pretty sure, where it's like half against that Kansas-Nebraska, half like very Whig style, like internal improvements, and then we still have the Know Nothings, which Millard Fillmore was a Know Nothing.
Stop it, Millard.
We'll get back to you, Millard Fillmore.
Yeah, he'll come back. So basically, we have the Dems with Buchanan, Republicans with Fremont, Know Nothings with Fillmore.
And then Buchanan wins, but he really doesn't do anything.
Yeah, well,
That's
right.
very typical mid-1800s.
And immediately upon taking office, there's another panic in 1857. So he's soiled immediately with
Right.
that sort of stigma of the panic, like we associate it with Buchanan. So not a good situation. It's a pretty bad panic, 1857. And guess what it's over, guys? Over speculation.
What?
Again!
Why do we keep doing this?
America.
I'm talking about the Great Depression to my honors kids right now.
Over speculation.
And I'm we've had 85 financial panics over speculation. It's fine. We keep doing it. It's okay.
Theme today, get it together.
Get it together.
Get it together, America.
So yeah, depression, does anything happen?
Yeah, it hurts manufacturers, workers, farmers.
It hurts
everybody.
it's a depression. It hurts everybody.
True.
Do we fix it?
No, because
No.
we got bigger fish to fry. Because guess what we got? Dred Scott decision.
Slavery.
This is so important.
Very important. So Dred Scott, he was a slave. His master died. Wasn't he up in the north?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. His master died, and so he sued for his freedom, which is, we talked about having to go to court and get your freedom. Excuse me. So it was because his master had moved up to a free state.
Yeah, so
taken him.
He had moved up into Illinois, and Illinois at the time was a free state. And so when he went with his master up there, he came back down to his home state, which was
South Carolina. Doesn't everything bad happen
it's
in
like
South
in Missouri.
Carolina? It is Missouri. You're right.
And he comes back down, and he's like, listen, I gained my freedom by being in a state that does not have slavery. And by gaining my freedom, it's against the Constitution, Fifth Amendment, to take away my ownership of that.
Right.
Can't do
Due
it.
process.
Gotcha, slavery.
Fifth Amendment, though, federal law, not state law. So
Not going to work.
that's
there.
the 14th Amendment. We'll get to that.
Getting there.
There's my gov train coming in. So Dred Scott obviously sues, and here's the outcome: doesn't win.
Yeah, well, Tawney says there is no ruling.
Roger B. Tawney is the
Leftover Jackson.
he's left over from Jackson. He's the Supreme Court Chief Justice at the time. not a great guy. And he says, like, why are we even having a court case right now?
You're not a citizen.
You're not a citizen.
Standing to sue.
You've no standing to sue. You're a slave, so you're someone's property.
Right.
So you have no right to petition the government. That's reserved for people who
However,
are part of the government.
talking about the Fifth Amendment, somebody's property potentially was taken away here.
The old owners.
And that was the owner's property.
So
there is
so
a
many
Fifth
issues.
Amendment violation that
There is.
Tawny recognizes, which is that slaves as property cannot be taken away from people no matter what the laws regarding slavery are within any state. So basically, the decision is that there's no such thing as popular sovereignty. There's also no
Right.
such thing as an anti-slavery state
Ever.
because you can't take property away without due process.
Right.
Period. I mean, it's a good argument. It's an awful
It's a
argument.
solid argument.
But it's good.
You can't fight with them
I don't like
on
it.
the constitutional basis of it. You can fight with them on a moral basis. But
All day long.
all day long.
And
Roger
I
B.
will.
Tawny.
So Dred Scott case is really important because guess what it undoes? Kansas-Nebraska Act.
Kansas-Nebraska Act, which had undone the Missouri Compromise.
Yeah. It undoes the Mexican cession aspect of popular sovereignty in the cession.
Right. So all Henry Clay's hard work
Gone.
just gone out the window.
Yeah.
All right. We're still talking about Kansas. This is
No,
the
we're good with that.
longest.
We're done with Kansas on this. So the emergence of Lincoln and Lincoln-Douglas debates. Douglas is Stephen Douglas. He is a Democrat, and he and Republican Abraham Lincoln are going for Illinois Congress.
Right.
Right? You want to be a senator?
Senator, yeah. It is not the presidential debates.
No,
Lincoln
not
did
at
not run against them. But whatever. This is where we see a lot of, Lincoln gained a lot of attention from these.
Absolutely.
He proves himself to be like a super
This
excellent
is when he
orator and
does
stuff.
his House Divided Against Itself.
Yes,
This is
a
that
house
speech.
divided against itself cannot stand. So good.
Now, in this debate, Lincoln, he doesn't come out as we got to get rid of slavery, because that is a very, very thin rope to walk at this moment.
Right.
Whatever his feelings were. And so he basically says, we either need to be all slave or all free, but we can't keep doing
We can't be
this split
divided.
thing.
Right.
So we got to figure it out. And he goes, whatever I have to do to keep people together, we're going to do that. But he is leading the party that's anti-slavery.
Free soil.
Yeah.
They don't want to get rid of it.
Right.
Containment of slavery. So yeah, we did. Douglas won that senator race.
Oh yeah, he won. But Lincoln is like a star.
Right. After this, everyone's like, Lincoln. Super tall too.
Super tall.
We love a tall guy. Yeah. This is his hat. I made that up.
Yeah.
I don't think it's his hat.
It's on your book. It's not. It's like a Monopoly piece. All right. So John Brown back again, because John Brown's like, listen, folks.
John Brown never sleeps.
Doesn't sleep. And yeah, I murdered a bunch of people, but I'm
But
going
I'm
to
back
murder even more.
to murder more people.
Okay. And we do have a tendency in the South to teach him as like this crazy man. Mm-hmm. And he does kill people. So yes. But
yeah.
Also, he's like, I'm not going to do this like tiptoeing around like, oh, slavery's okay here, but not here. He's like, nah, it's bad everywhere. So I'm going to kill anyone who supports it.
Very aggressive abolitionist, and he leads this big slave revolt.
Well, he did Pottawatomie. Now he's coming back.
I thought we were on this now.
He's moved out west, and now he's in Virginia.
He's in Virginia.
Soon to be West Virginia, this area.
West
And
Virginia.
that would have been a good one to go out on.
Oh, man.
So
I can sing a song.
He holes up with his sons and some freedmen that he brings with him.
Mm-hmm.
And they hole up trying to get a bunch of arsenal, like a bunch of weapons.
Right.
All right. And it's Harpers Ferry is what we call it. Now, Robert E. Lee rides out on his horse, and he is going to be like, John Brown, you give yourself up.
Force bill. Just kidding.
Not force bill.
Not force bill.
Almost so.
Very cool.
At this point, and my little tidbit about this is always like to give you a sense of John Brown. There are some shots fired, and one of his sons is wounded, mortally wounded. Mm-hmm. And the son's like, Dad, can we just wave the white flag and just go out and give up? And his dad says, and I quote, if you're going to die, you're going to die like a man. And he lets his son just die there on the ground.
So that's just a little peek into John Brown's psyche.
I mean, the guy is intense. Captured, hung
for treason. Here we go. something very important to remember about this, because I won't talk about this in class. Treason is a federal crime. You cannot technically commit treason against your state, but he is hung for treason. So what we are seeing here is Virginia's like, we're the nation now. We're the end all be all of crimes. And so they're like, you've committed treason against us, not the federal government, but we're still going to hang you.
Virginia. States' rights.
States' rights. Here we go.
It's bad.
There you go.
It's dangerous. All right. I believe that this may be it.
Is it?
No, we got one more in the election. This is it.
Oh, how could we forget? So Lincoln, unscathed by his defeat by Stephen Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
Well done, Douglas. If you could defeat Lincoln.
Yeah. Also, side note, the reason Douglas really had a leg up is because he was all about the economy. He's like, let's get a railroad that comes through Illinois.
And when you're talking about the North, like, it's the economy.
Yeah. So
always. That's
what got him elected. But that's fine because Lincoln's got bigger fish to fry.
Right. So Lincoln runs for president, as you can see here. Democrats were divided here. We've gotten Southern Democrats and Northern Democrats, and they really did feel two different ways. Mm-hmm. Whenever you see a political party divided, that means not 100% of your party's votes are going to go towards one person, which is going to let the other person win. Also, Abraham Lincoln, no electoral college votes from the South.
Yeah, not surprising.
He won the entire thing without any electoral college votes from the South, which is going to make the Southerners feel some kind of way.
Sure.
And they're like, you know what? We're underrepresented.
But you gotta be smart about these elections.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, and this is a technique we see all the time. You put up, even in modern situations, you put up third parties and it splits the vote, man. And
it's not smart.
It's dangerous. It's
very dangerous.
It's a bet you don't really want to gamble with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at this point, all right, guys. So with that, Lincoln is the president. We are going to start to see immediate secession. It happens within a couple of weeks, and that's it.
That's it. We'll see you next time.
All right, guys. It's been fun.
Rosanna's down in Texarkana wanted me to push her